Right. So we will start approximately a third from the bottom of page Mem Vov. Line begins with Kulhi v'chein kol nivra shalamato. So the general context is that we were saying that Nivroim are created by the zivug, by the joining of AyinBase, of Chochmah and Bina. But then we also said that the joining of Chochmah and Bina is what's called a zivug ruchni. And a zivug ruchni, just like a Rav Talmid, when the Rav is transmitting Chochmah Seichel to the Talmid, he does not really create a new entity. He enables the Talmid to understand the Seichel, but that is due to the fact that the Talmid has Seichel, the Koyach has Seichel on his own. And then the Rabbi is able to open it up and to develop it, but not to create it. How is it then that Chochmah Bina, there is a new creation, and that creation is a full-fledged creation. In other words, a creation that has Seichel of its own. Like we said, the Malachim, they are Masi Gelakus, and so forth. So, to explain this, the Rebbe goes on to explain that in truth, however, even though the Nivroim and the Malachim function as they would be full-fledged independent creatures, but really, in reality, this full presence of theirs is actually dependent, is actually due to the fact that they are connected to that which is above them. We discussed this principle yesterday at length. And the Rebbe is explaining that every creature here lamato, here below, has its source lambaila. As an example, he gives so far the tarnagoil, the rooster, and the rooster crows when day breaks, and what arouses the rooster to know that that day is breaking, and he should crow, is because there's Mala Gabriel, which is the source of this rooster, Mala Gabriel and Mila, who is doing the similar thing, awakening the Neshamas L'Maila in Gan Eden. So he's a full-fledged presence, but not on his own, but because there is a Sheilash L'Maila. As I said, we discussed this yesterday from our own experience in terms of daylight and sunlight and so forth. V'chein kol nivra shalamato. And the same is true, kol nivra shalamato. Every creature here below, yesh lo yishayrash u'mokoir lamayla. It has a root, a source, and a basis above. And this basis above, this is what gives it its full presence here lamato. And this lamato does not become an independent presence, even though he functions in full force. And where do we see that? That if this root oir should come in full revelation on the Nivra Hilamata, on the creature he below, then this creature here below would lose its presence altogether. Because its primary presence is due to its connection to the Almighty. And then it descends lower, and if the higher level should be in his gale by him completely, then he would lose completely his presence. This also we discussed yesterday, the illustration of Aloi Signov and so forth. As the Gemara tells us, Malochim Elyonim, the higher Malochim, Kasher Hoi, Shida Kodesh Baruch Hu, Etzboi Haktana B'neihem, that it says that the Kodesh Baruch Hu has put forward his pinky, his small finger, B'neihem, between them, amongst them, which means Shehoyo Aleim Gilu Yoiser, that what bestowed upon them a Gilu Yoiser, a greater revelation, Mechoeg HaKotzuf, than that which is the norm that is established for them. Mebchinas Malchus Da'atzilus, more than the Choeg HaKotzuf from Malchus Da'atzilus. Malchus Da'atzilus, this is what allows everything to be created. And if there was a Gilui greater than that norm that was established for them, Nizbatlu Mimtziyuso, they completely lost their Mitzias. The Ayin Zeh, and this beetle Mimtziyuso does not represent the Torah's beetle. It was not a beetle in the sense of beetle of submission. A submission of beetle means that the central presence remains, but he is submitting, and he's giving up completely his own decision-making power, so to speak. But this was not the case. Beetle Hamalachim is kiyim bebchinas heder legamri. That beetle is in bebchinas heder legamri, is in the category of total annihilation. Heder, absence. There's nothing there. As is explained elsewhere. This is how it was Malachim Elyenim. And similarly, the creatures here below. If should their source shine upon them in full glory, that it would be in full revelation, so then they would be completely nisbatl, they would cease to exist as entities. So again, these principles we already discussed yesterday, but now that we are learning again, so to speak, so I want to explain this principle here. Hayoim is batlan legamri. I'll just read one more line. V'im kein, and thus harei gam be'eis mitziyusom. Therefore, it means that gam be'eis mitziyusom, even while they do exist, eino mitziyus amiti, they are not a true presence, a true mitziyus. Their mitziyus is only due to the fact that they're connected to their source. So we explained it yesterday, and this is worth repeating. The fact is that there is a koyach ruchni in everything. excuse me, and in the human being who is functioning in every respect, a real presence, and this presence is due to the fact that there is a nefesh, there's a ruch nizike koyach in this body that gives it life. And this ruch nizike koyach, and we always point out, he has seichel. He's able to perceive things in his brain, things which are really ruch nizike inyanim, and function accordingly. So therefore, we say that there is a gilui hanefesh in the person. So how come the person is not misbatel legam? So the explanation is that this thing that there is gilui hanefesh in the person is that the nefesh is mislabesh, and it relates to its recipient, to its kele, to the body. The nefesh does not reveal itself in the person in its pure nefesh state. It reveals itself in a manner that, so to speak, it barely touches the brain, and the brain is able to sense the Ayin that is revealed upon. But all revelation come through the services, through the process of being first imbued in the goof, in the brain, and then that function begins to surface. Just like b'koyach hadibah, koyach in the hand, the koyach the hand is able to move, even though this is a koyach nefesh, but then the koyach nefesh is first mislabish in the hand, and the hand begins to feel the koyach of movement. And then he moves. And to us it appears almost as the hand is moving independently. But of course this is not the case. The hand cannot move. But the koyach nefesh, if it's labish in the hand, it becomes so imbued and united with the hand that the hand is able to take it and tolerate it without losing itself. And because it's mislabish in a very measured manner, so that the hand is able to actually experience this chayas of the koyach hatnua of the nefesh. The same thing in koyach haseichel of the hand and the brain. I always point out, you'll notice that Chassidus, when he refers to seichel, he refers to moichin. Moichin is the physical kele for seichel, the moyach, the brain. Because we do not really have access. We do not really have a gila, the koyach haseichel per se. It is only the way the koyach haseichel is mislabish in the brain. And to the extent that the brain is able to sense the seichel, that's the extent to which we have the seichel. It's called meichel. The mayach is extremely sensitive, and is able to sense this koyach nefesh of seichel. But this is all in what's called hislapshus, and it's mislabish means it relates to it. It's like a hand in a glove, so it fits perfectly, and then it's able to function accordingly. On the broader scale, you point out that the nefesh is mislabish in the guf ha'odom. As a result of that, the human being is able to understand and to live in a manner that is respectable to his nefesh, even though he's acting through his body. But he senses in his brain what is a proper way to behave. in a manner that would not violate and would not offend his nefesh. So he's sensing, so to speak, the nefesh elements, but it's all on the level, all in a very focused manner, very limited manner, so that excuse me, you can actually, whatever the guf ha'odam senses is something that it can process. But should the nefesh be nizgala on the person in its full glory, impute seichel, that which the brain cannot really sort out and relate to, then he would lose his human presence, his physical presence, with all the reality of the human being. This is what we're saying. Im Kain, therefore, I'm repeating the last line that I read last night. Im Kain, therefore, it shows Harei Gam Beis Mitziyuso. It means that even while they do exist, Ein Mitziyus Amiti. They're not a Mitziyus Amiti. When you see a human being, for example, if we talked about, and he behaves according to the rules of Seichel, this is not that his Seichel, that his brain is giving him guidance. It's the Seichel in his brain. And then if the Seichel should be nizgala a trifle more than is proper allotted, then he would lose it.
He would lose what?
He would lose his presence. He would lose his presence as a human being. In the Gemara, there's an expression that's called Sagi Nohar. Anybody heard of Sagi Nohar? Sagi Nohar? Sagi Nohar is a way that the Gemara refers to a sightless person. The word Sagi Nohar means a lot of light, which means that he has an excessive amount of light. And as a result of that, he cannot see. So the explanation is that the eye filters the amount of light that it accepts. As a result of that, he's able to see the world, physical objects. If he would not filter it, there were not a curtain, so to speak, that protects the eye from all the light, then he would not be able to see objects. The light is all there, but the services of sight would be completely eliminated.
It does seem that by avoidal, by chinuch, that one increases the seichel that's in the moyach, and that's appropriate. Or was that not the point?
Yeah, definitely. But that increase is in a very gradual manner, where actually the most important part of this increase is not the seichel, but of the moyach being able to relate to the seichel. The moyach searches out the higher level of seichel.
So it kind of makes itself ready. It becomes
That's right.
daily.
That's right. Yes, absolutely. And then he realizes, oh, I see this. But he cannot have something, to see something without being prepared for it. This brings to light the paramount importance and significance of avoid on his own, of trying to understand on your own, because anything that's being explained, even if one can follow the words and understand them, he doesn't really get the seichel by following the words. And if he should, then it would not be his seichel.
That fits obviously with what we had yesterday and time after time, that unless he hears it from his teacher, it kind of doesn't have the same.
No, that's that's a different element. That's a different element. Even that which he does understand, he has to come to him in a finite manner. Even that which he does relate to, which he does understand, he would lack a sense of conviction, a sense of reality, if not for the fact that he knows that it comes from the teacher. That is what gives it its substance. It doesn't stand on its own.
So he has to come to it himself, and then he has to kind of hear it, have it endorsed by his master. Is that
No. He first has it from his master, and then he works into that which his master taught him. And all along, he's working into the words of the master.
So in a way, so it sounds like the Rav says something that's a little bit beyond over his head, as you could say. And he works towards it. No?
No, not necessarily over his head. Even to understand that which is in his head, at his level, but to understand it on a fundamental level, as a reality, he needs a substantiation of the Rav. Because if he understands it only on the basis of seichel and logic, it doesn't have a substance. All right. Eino metzias amiti. We have discussed these words, metzias amiti, over and over again. And I said this is an elusive concept. The reason it's an elusive concept, the reason we cannot really pin it down, is because we really do not have the capacity to pin it down. Because our seichel is not a metzias amiti. We do not have that kind of access to define metzias amiti. For example, we always quote the Rambam that mi'amitis himotzoi nimtzu kol ha'nimtzoim. From the truth of his presence, all the nimtzoim came to be. There is no way that we can understand what these words fully talk about. What kind of truth is that presence? We can talk about it only from the perspective, in a manner of saying, here is the contrast, but all the creatures, everything that we can observe, that we can identify fully, has this shortcoming, and he doesn't have this shortcoming. The primary thing that immediately meets the eye is that it doesn't have a source. Every creature in our orientation has a source. A presence without a source means that it is self-contained. It has its own truth. And immediately when we say it has its own truth, we say, where is that truth coming from? Because this is the way our mind works. So we cannot really even begin to project that type of a presence. So even though that the creatures here, the human being, is a true presence, as we always explain, a true presence in the world, and we always make the point that a human being upon birth is assigned a name. And a name represents a true presence. There are two ways to describe an entity: by its function and by its reality. If you describe it by its function, clearly you're not intending, you're not referring to the real thing. You're referring to its functionality. The name that we give to a child when it's born is not functional name, because the child didn't begin to function. So there's true presence there. As we always point out, that a human being, by his very presence in the world, makes the world into a world. A world without a human being is not a mitzvah, it's not a world. With the human being is a real world. And that is because of the presence of the human being, not because of his function. So it's a real presence. And that real presence is not a mitzvah mitzadatzma. It's a real presence because of his recognition and because of his sense of the godly force that creates him. On his own, he doesn't really sense what means reality, what reality is. On his own, he is all function.
He's real when he's born, though.
Excuse me?
But when he's born, you said he's real presence. There's no recognition of functionality.
That's right. But the real, that's what he's
no
explaining.
Recognition of godliness when he's.
I'm saying that the reason that he is a real presence, we give him a name, is because he represents a godliness. Selam Aleki. At birth. But on his own, he doesn't have that capacity at all.
So even from birth, he's representing godliness.
Excuse me?
From birth, he's representing godliness.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not aware of that, obviously.
He's not aware of it, but that's what he is. He's not aware of it. He is aware of it. It depends how you define awareness. I point out all the time that an infant, when you feed him, he wants to eat like a human being, at his level. He already has that sense. When a human being begins to identify his own mitzias as a mitzias, for instance, he hoards money, just hoards money. There was a story some time ago, I remember, there was an elderly couple that passed away, and they lived in poverty. Lived in poverty on all government subsidies. Mamas lived in poverty. There were no heirs, no anything. They opened up their mattresses. Were stashed with money. Millions of dollars were stashed into these mattresses. When he begins to hoard like this, he loses completely his human perception.
I don't know if that's our problem here, looking around the table.
We have plenty of problems with our egos, with our gaiva, with our self-centeredness. That's the one question. The point, we do have a Metzias Amitis. The Metzias Amitis is due to our connection to our source. But not a Metzias Amiti on its own. just want to go into the next thing for a moment. This is what the Rambam writes. Who Shoman Hanovi? This, but the Rambam explains that Mamit is Imotzi Nitzukayim Soyim, and that this is what the Novi is referring to when he says, Vashem Elikim Emes. Hashem Elikim is Emes. What does it mean, Emes? It means he's not a liar. It means Shehu Levade Emes, only he is the Emes, Vein Liachar Emes Kamitosi. Nothing else has a truth on par to his truth. Which is where we stop. Till tomorrow morning, Mr. Shem.
Sorry. We're not true, because if our sole source was revealed, we would be nullified. But we are. You're saying we are true.
We are true. We are true in our function, but we're not a true presence independently.